Hello and welcome to the sixthaxis.com. For you today we have got a Nintendo Switch Lite unboxing, and as you can see we have got the turquoise version of this console in. So let's keep this nice and breezy. We all know what this is. Let's just get this unboxed quite quickly for you and onto some comparison shots. So first thing first, obviously the box is so much smaller than the original Switch because of course there is no dock inside, so it's just the console, just the charger, and that means that this section of the unboxing is really nice and simple. There we go, console, charger, Nintendo Switch Lite, little instruction manual, which has actually, well, it's been redesigned for both consoles now, so it's got little instructions relating to both of them. This is the exact same charger as you will find with the original Switch, so it can be used for either or both. And of course, it's just USB-C, so that is nice and ubiquitous these days. Let's get this out of its little packaging. And yeah, immediately you can see that it's actually really quite a nicely designed bit of kit. It's obviously not got any of the modularity of the original Switch, but that's what it's there for. It's a pure handheld. So let's bring in the original Switch now for some size comparisons and place that properly in the center of the screen. There we go, that's better frames. And you can see just how much smaller it actually is. This is just a 5.5 inch screen, which, you know, there's a lot of mobile phones out there these days which have got bigger screens, and that is a 6.2 inch screen on the original Switch. You're basically taking off, in terms of width, you're taking off the width of a whole Joy-Con in terms of size, and then in terms of height, it's, you know, maybe about 1.5 centimeters, 2 centimeters tops, maybe like 18 millimeters or something like that. But then the actual depth is absolutely identical because of the ZR and ZL buttons on there. Let's put this over to one side and go around the Switch Lite, just checking out all of the various bits and bobs. On the front, you've got all of the buttons that you could possibly want. The only real difference is on the left-hand side where you've got an actual D-pad compared to the individual buttons of the Joy-Con, which obviously you need to have on the Joy-Con so that you can serve dual purpose with being held sideways and stuff, but you don't need that here, so there's a proper D-pad, which I'm sure lots of people will be overjoyed with. On the top then, you've got all of the usual buttons, power, volume, you've got the headphone jack of course, and you've got the game cartridge slot, and you've also got a much nicer redesigned vent at the top for heat to escape, because you've still got a fan in there, still got a fairly chunky heatsink despite the reduction in nanometer process and stuff of the CPU and the power reduction that it has. And as you can see, let's get a bit of light on here. As you can see, it's much less of just like a gaping chasm into the heart of the Switch. This is a much beefier grille, and it's also a point of weakness on the original design. My personal Switch, this is not my one, but this is a much better condition one than mine. My personal Switch has got cracks along this vent through no fault of my own, so there is that. Turning it over to the back, and well, you've got smaller, let's get the other Switch in here again, you've got smaller intakes for the fan and the heatsink and stuff like that. And then instead of having a kickstand under which the original Switch would hide its micro SD card slot, I'm not sure you can quite make that out, but there is a micro SD card slot there. Instead of having a kickstand, because this is a pure handheld, you have got a micro SD card slot with its own individual cover, and that is a much more secure feeling position, I think. And then along the bottom, you've still got the USB-C port, and you've now got two sort of downward facing speaker holes here instead of the forward facing ones of the Switch, which would have been sort of inlaid here on the face panel. So yeah, that's basically all there is to the Switch. I'm going to go run off and do a bit of setup, and then we will be back in a moment to check out the screens. So this is the home screen, and I think there is just a little bit more of a yellow orangey tint to the Switch Lite screen. It's just a very, very subtle thing, but it feels a little bit warmer to me. That's obviously not really that big of an issue. These things change from one panel to another, from one design to another, but you know, some people might prefer the original screen, and there's also rumors of different panels now being used in the slightly redesigned, not redesigned, the improved version of the original Switch with the new lower power chipset. One thing that I will say that I've noticed about the Switch Lite though is that this screen is not corner to corner. There is a black border within the color, so you have this kind of framing effect on here, which you don't, if it's there, notice on the original Switch because the body of the console itself is just black. So that's a slight difference there. Now, there have also been some other cost-cutting measures in the design of the Switch Lite. So, for example, you no longer have an automatic brightness setting in the console because there is no brightness sensor. You also don't have any HD rumble in the console, and that's not that you give up the HD side of the rumble, it's that you give up rumble full stop. There's no rumble motion in this console, which is a bit of a shame because, you know, even in handheld mode, there is rumble on this through the Joy-Con. So that's a slight disappointment. Digging into the settings, and you are also missing the all-important TV output section. There is no TV output on the Switch Lite. There's obviously no way that you can fit it into the dock, which is purely designed for this size. You'd have the Joy-Con and the buttons impacting on that, and also the triggers on the back, so you can't actually fit it in. But even if you do plug it into that same board, you will only get power and maybe data for like USB controller connections, maybe, but you won't have any TV output, which is a bit of a shame because, you know, even though it might be seen as a second console, I feel like having TV output would still be a selling point. You know, they can charge a little bit more for a specific dock for the Switch Lite, and it doesn't really impact the value of the larger console. Now, going hands-on with the two, there's some obvious differences in how they actually feel to play with them. So this is mainly down to the buttons, really, I feel. The clickiness of the buttons on the Switch Joy-Con, there's a clear clickiness to them, and is very well defined, and is quite obvious. And that extends to the triggers as well. You can't really hear the difference. The microphone isn't set up for that, but there is a difference there. Switching over to the Switch Lite, and they are just that little bit mushier. There's no defined click to them, I don't feel. Like, you can feel the end of the buttons, but they don't have that clicky factor to them. Going through all of my controllers, I feel that this is closest to the Wii U gamepad. It's not the PS4 DualShock 4 or the Pro Controller or even the Wii U Pro Controller, I mean. So this is by far closest in terms of feel to the Wii U gamepad. That's also true of the D-pad, and that gives me a little pause for thought because it's just a bit too mushy for me. I don't feel that, especially because of the size of it, it is a good couple of millimeters smaller than any other D-pad that I've got, whether it's the Pro Controller again or the DualShock 4 again, is quite a bit smaller because this is a handheld. And it's just got that mushiness that I'm not sure that the 8 directions are properly defined in it. I've played a bit of Tetris 99 in it and had plenty of fun with that, but yeah, I'm just not 100% certain that, you know, like the die-hard gamers, the ones that are gunning for first place in Tetris 99 or love their fighting games with D-pad support, they're not perhaps going to be super duper happy with this. Alright, that's all that we've got for this video. Head over to thesixaxis.com where we've got a little bit more about the console and our impressions of it. As always, make sure to like, subscribe and share, and hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye!